personally think the music and the sound, it's just as important as the image. And my knowledge of music helped me a lot. My first work as an editor, which was a director as well, was the video clip of my band. And then I said, well, I like editing, so I might take a shot. And then I started doing an intern in a small production company. And then after we released this video, one of the directors of this company where I was an intern, he called me, oh, I like your editing. You should try to do some advertisement for me. And then it started from there. As I was doing these ads for many directors, I believe Rodrigo and his production company found my portfolio and said, oh, I'm doing a Selena Gomez video. Do you want to do it? I said, of course, man. And it was a great experience to do this job.
Hey.
I like movies a lot, but I'm not like study a lot and say, oh, I know. I did a university. We call it here audiovisual, but it's kind of a cinema. I started in 2008. It's a 4 years degree, and it was really important to give us this theory background for us to work. But I believe I actually like learn how to edit by doing it, you know. And then I started doing an intern in a small production company. Actually started doing After Effects. I was doing university and a friend of mine was doing it. And he said, oh, you should do this 2-week course of After Effects. And I really got into it. I loved it. But then when I was an intern there, by that time we were like burning DVDs to show the clients, you know, the portfolio and stuff like that. So I had to do the letterings for the After Effects and eventually I had to edit some stuff. And that's when I found out like editing was my thing, you know, because I think After Effects, it's kind of sometimes it's mathematical, you know, like it's really logical. And I think editing, you have to work with the rhythm, and I'm a musician as well, so that thing caught me, and then from I guess 2010 on, I mainly just did editing and some directing as well.
What instrument do you play?
I play mainly the guitar,
Okay.
but I play also the keyboard and the piano, a bit of drum, a little bit of bass, and you know, like this stuff.
How has that experience and that knowledge of being able to play these instruments impacted your editing?
Oh, I think it's very impacts a lot because I personally think the music and the sound, it's just as important as the image. And my knowledge of music helped me a lot, you know, because then as an editor, we were always trying to edit the soundtrack as well. And it's not just about soundtrack, it's about the sounds, you know, and I cannot deliver a cut without working on the sound because I think it's actually tells other stories by the sound, you know, and it's more subtle, and
Yeah.
so it's pretty important. Yeah, I actually nowadays I'm using a little keyboard while I'm editing. I have a keyboard controller so that I plug in another software called Ableton Live,
Yeah.
and that's where I write music because as well I have a band as well, and have been playing for more than 10 years. We have actually played even in the States and Canada. We went to South by Southwest, which was a
Oh,
great
that's great.
experience.
How fun.
Yeah, and yeah, it's really, really important. I think it's for me helps a lot with my editing.
Okay, so take me back to it's 2008. You're starting film school. You are interning at this production company. You're learning After Effects. How did that become? You said you started doing a little bit of editing. How did this lead to, meeting the directors that you would end up working with on these big music videos, big commercials?
I was just like kind of doing everything people ask me to, you know, like, oh yeah, I know you edit, and can you do something for me for free? I don't know. I was at the beginning of a career, and I was pretty open because I knew that you have to make a network, you know, to be able for even people to see what your work is like. And actually, my first work as an editor, which was a director as well, the official one was the video clip of my band. that we done in 2010. One of my bandmates has a house by the beach, which São Paulo has like beautiful beaches of 2 3 hours drives away from São Paulo. It was 2010, and people were just like having this Canon 5D fever. You know, they're
Mm.
just
Oh
like
yeah,
everyone, and
yeah.
it looks so beautiful. And then we went there with a friend of us, which is a photographer, and he just like ended up shooting everything where the band hanging together in that house. And we ended up with I believe like 16 hours of raw footage, and
Wow.
nobody wanted to edit that. You know, like there's no script, there's nothing.
Yeah,
And then I said, oh, I like editing, so I might take a shot.
yeah.
And then after we released this video, one of the directors of this company where I was an intern, he called me. Oh, I like your editing. You should try to
Ah,
do some advertisement for me. And then it started from there, because then you work with some director, and if it works well, he'll probably say to someone else, "Oh, this guy did a great job," and it's pretty much natural. You have to, of course, uh, put yourself around. You know, like try to show people what you work, what you want to do in editing. But yeah, how I ended up meeting the directors I work now. I think it was a progress. It wasn't something. Oh, I need to meet this guy there. It happened naturally.
did you meet Rodrigo Saavedra first, or Alaska, or Ian
Yeah, no,
Rochelle?
yeah, both of them were probably Rodrigo. I worked first with him in an advertisement, which because like in São Paulo, I mainly do advertisement.
Okay.
Nowadays, I'm starting to do like content and series, which
Yeah.
I'm loving it. It's been
Mm.
an amazing experience. But as I was doing these ads for many directors, I believe Rodrigo and his production company found my portfolio and said,
Okay.
"Oh, let's take a shot." And then
Yeah.
we worked really well together in I think two advertisements spots that we did together. And then he called me, like said, "Oh, I'm doing a Selena Gomez video clip. Do you want to do it?" I said, "Of course,
Hmm.
man." Like, and it was great, a great experience to do this job.
That's a great one. Yeah, DJ Snake is in it too.
DJ Snake, yeah, and he actually shot in Dubai because
Oh,
DJ Snake was in Dubai, and then he went to New York and shot Selena there. And then he
really?
shot in São Paulo. The main character, he was in São Paulo.
Really?
Really? Yeah, it was
Three
three
different
different
shoots.
countries. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. How did they make that barbershop feel continuous from shot to shot?
Chroma
Was it
key,
sets?
chroma key. Yeah,
Okay.
it was. Of course, like then we have to fix sometimes something feels a bit off. But
I see.
nowadays, editing, I use mainly Premiere,
Okay.
and you can work a lot, like rescaling and trying
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
reposition it. And I'm glad you said it. The continuous felt good, which
Oh,
yeah, that's
totally.
nice.
And there's a lot of little CG touches in there, like when you see DJ Snake, like in the painting on the wall, like
Yeah,
reacting to them walking past. And I've noticed in a lot of your work, there's a lot of really subtle CG, like really impressive things. I think Rodrigo does a lot of things with like floating objects,
yes.
which is really cool. What is your workflow working with these directors who are doing quite a bit of CG, but really trying to integrate it into these very organic feeling, often retro environments?
Yeah, like Alaska and Rodrigo, they really use a lot of CG towards like bringing like making the movie bigger, and they really have that knowledge of, oh, I'm gonna shoot this way. So the DJ Snake's portraits on the wall were just like green screens,
Hmm.
and then he shot DJ Snake in Dubai doing some poses and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
then of course that as I was saying, my After Effects background helps me a
Ah,
lot to in our first cuts we can already see like some of the, of course, sometimes the CG it's really complex, and then we just do like something, oh, it's gonna look like this, but it's gonna, and but then you need to work with this chroma keys and do some masking and stuff like this in order for us to see like how it's looking like the rhythm.
hmm.
and it's pretty much like this. They really work well with this, you know.
How did you meet them, and how did they bring you onto that Tove Lo?
My first experience with the Alaskas was another video clip that we did for Anita. It's she's huge in Brazil right now. And as there were another singers that was Luisa Sonza and Pablo Vittar. They're just like huge in Brazil. The same as Rodrigo. Like the production company probably said they were like lacking editors or no something like my editor wasn't there, and they said, "Oh, there's this guy that has a portfolio, and let's try it with him." And then we got along really well. I think that's really important as well for you to keep working with directors. It's having this good relationship and
Yeah.
be open, for criticism as well, like working towards the project and not making it like something about, oh, it's my editing, so you.
So I was just gonna, when you meet these really, prominent directors at the top of the game, what do you do in that first meeting to win them over?
I believe I'm just myself, like
Yeah.
there's not sometimes directors aren't really nice, they can be the best guy, they do amazing work, but personally, that there's not that thing that says, oh, this guy is nice. I like to work with him. Some are more authoritarian, some, and I really like these guys because they also respect my view, and then we're building up together. Especially the Alaska as well. They edit as well, so
Okay.
uh, eventually, like I said, oh, I need to go out and get a pizza, and then say, oh, I'll just sit around here and try something. So it's pretty open relationship,
Okay.
and it works pretty well.
And so what's the workflow on a music video like these? Are you getting dailies? Is it all delivered to you at once? How much briefing do you have from the director, and how much create of your own vision do you bring into that first cut, and how much does it change over the following weeks working with them?
It depends, but usually it's always in a rush. Like they're still doing like in an advertisement kind of time, and it's like everything is for yesterday, so you have to. And usually I get the dailies. Like for example, Tove Lo video was shot in 35 millimeters.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they shot in Mexico, and then they had to get that film and turn into like a digital video in LA. But I was getting daily by daily because they were sending the rolls like you go and get it. And usually, yeah, I have to check all the footage. I'm pretty organized. I use a lot of colors and markers in the timeline in order to make like a catalog that I can have an overview, so I can be okay. I saw everything, and now it's kind of organized, and then we can try to input our ideas into it. Usually, they bring a shooting board. Some depends from director. Sometimes they're really like, oh, this scene is gonna be like this and like this, and it's pretty like, specific. But always, there's something that didn't work that well, or something that would work better in that time. So my first cut, I try to put all the director's vision, and sometimes they're not even around because, for example, Tove Lo video, the Alaskas were like in Mexico, and I had to present them cut. I have to work mainly with the rhythm, like trying to make to make it like tight, and
Yeah.
and you get that feeling. But it's the editing process, as you know, it's never like, oh, I did the first shot, it looks beautiful. No, it's always something you have to work day after day.
Yeah.
And that's when I say, when people have these crazy schedules that you have 2 3 days to edit something that would require a week.
Yeah.
It's bad because I think when we sleep, like it's the editing process is sometimes really tiring and requires a lot from you, and like sleeping a bit, and then you play it again the other day, you said, oh man, you went to sleeping, oh, it's looking good, and when you wake up again, you said, oh, it's totally messed up.
It's
I need
true.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then that's why I always, when I'm dealing like with these schedules, I'm always trying to say to productions like, can we try to get an day extra or something, because it does make a lot of difference. Yeah.
How often are you sitting in the editing bay with these directors, or is it almost entirely remote and you're
Some directors in advertisement I have done, especially during the pandemic, was remote and it worked pretty well. But for example, these video clips with Saavedra and the Alaska, they came to the editing bay. I have an editing bay in my house. Uh, because of the pandemic, I moved to a house with which I have a bigger space to have them around. And yeah, and they come along, and sometimes they just sit for an hour and say, oh, keep on going. I think you should work more. And sometimes they spend like 10 hours and, oh, let's do this and try this and that. So it depends, but usually they are around.
So I saw you've done a lot of work with Iconoclast, one of the top
Yeah.
commercial production companies, Bossa Nova, Oriental Films, Directors Bureau, a very big one in LA, Recorder in Germany. And sometimes you'll work with the same director, but at these different production houses. So how
Yeah.
many of your jobs come from the production house saying, hey, we want you to meet this other director, he or she needs an editor, versus the director saying, hey, come with me to this new project? Is it a pretty
Yeah.
even balance of new work?
For example, these works that I've done overseas, which was with Recorder and Directors Bureau, it was because of Rodrigo Saavedra, and some of them I've done in Mexico with the Alaska. So they obviously told them, "Oh, I have this editor, and he will work from Brazil." But sometimes, especially in Brazil, many I'm every time sometimes I'm meeting new directors because your name is in these production companies, and eventually, when the market everyone's working, like directors have their favorite or someone that they work a lot, and eventually he's not there because we're all freelance. Yeah, like we're not working for a production company, and then so they have to try a new one, and that's our opportunity to work with new people.
So on these really tight timelines for an ad project or a music video where you only have a couple days, will you do the assistant editor work yourself? It sounds like you are organizing those clips yourself, or do you have some support who's helping you organize and set up the projects before you start cutting?
In the beginning of my career, an assistant wasn't an option, so we had to do everything. Like usually what the production companies do, they give us the proxy, they do this more kind of technical part. When I was able to call assistants, I tried to make them work their creativity with me, because I think more heads working together, we can achieve a better result. So usually, when I have the opportunity to ask for an assistant, and I've been working with some, I try to tell them what's my organization like, because I think editing, right? It's not a there's no formula. Everyone has a little difference from the way they organize. So I just try to align this so we can so he can understand my way to organize, and I also can work with his organization.
Hmm.
And once we done the select, because we're selecting, basically, I have, for example, in a spot, and then there's the scene of the main character, but we also have a lot of pack shots. And then I say, oh, I prefer to focus in the scenes where I have to see like the acting and stuff like this. And I'll set the assistant do the pack shots, like, get the best shots. And when he finishes and he has some time to work with along, I said, try a cut. Like let's see what happens, and then it's good. And eventually, I'm losing some assistants because they're becoming editors, really good editors, and I'm really happy for it.
Oh, that's great.
I'm hopefully find more assistants because all of them are, man, I'm not doing it.
When you need to find a good assistant, where do you look?
For example, one of them I met in a production company that we were doing a spot, and then he was an assistant, and then we just got along really well. Sometimes I call a friend and say, "Do you know any assistant that is around?" So it's pretty much like it. You just have to ask around, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work that well. But and I've never had problems, like, oh my God, this guy is it's doing everything totally wrong. No, it's always good.
And then how did these Netflix projects start, and what is that workflow like? How does it differ from the fast-paced commercials and music videos?
It started at the same production company that I do a lot of ads here in Brazil. There's this coordinator. She always asks me for, oh, you want to do this spot? And I said, I really would like to do a series, like if there's an opportunity. I'm always like, trying to talk and say, oh, I'll see what I can do. And then eventually this year it happened. And it was amazing because I had to learn a new software, which is Avid Media
Oh
Composer.
yeah.
I really liked it, even though there are some advantages I think that happens in Premiere. And I also know that some advantages in Media Composer, especially for content when you have a lot of sound, the voices, sometimes it's 8 channels,
Wow.
and they have these tools that make it really easier. So it was nice. The workflow, it's nice because you have a long time. It's like editing an advertisement. I can compare like running 100 meters, like you have to do like 10 seconds,
Yeah.
yeah, just to sprint, and then the series is like a marathon, So you have to keep try to organize your schedule to, and sometimes it's the editing, the selecting the image is not as accurate or something like really specific that you do in advertisement, because like advertisement you need that product to be shining and everything, and in series it's just more about the feeling of it.
Yeah.
And the acting, it's more general. And I also had to struggle because I was kind of I had this advertisement flow in my mind, and then when I saw the first cut, it was too many cuts, so in this kind of
Interesting.
so you have to slow down a bit and try to make scenes longer. You don't There's nothing like video clips, sometimes you just put a lot of cuts, but after all, the workflow is pretty much the same. You have to get the raw footage, organize it, find out what you want, and go for it.
Was it documentary, that first project, or narrative? What was that first Netflix
Narrative,
project?
yeah, it's a series for Netflix in Brazil called Invisible City. They're doing the second season, and I edited the last episode of the season,
Okay.
and it was an amazing experience. And nowadays I'm pretty much like leaning towards uh, doing more of content and series and hopefully feature films. Other thing that is different, it's like for example the sounds in advertisement. Sometimes the sound, it's like a soundtrack, and it goes, has the end. And in doing series, sometimes you have a 3 minute long scene, and you need to put just a really subtle something, like a pad sounding like in it's much more about these tiny elements than you just like doing advertisement that is wow, like kind of showing off.
How much of your sound design goes into that final mix of the episode versus a sound designer or a mixer?
Yes, it depends. Sometimes it's almost the same. They get it and make it mostly like even better because
Yeah.
they working on it.
But you set some
But
direction with your sound
yeah,
cuts.
yeah.
Cool.
And then I try to I say to director, said, oh, this I think this part should have this. Of sometimes the sound you found, it's not the best to suit it, but it gives you an idea. So he said, oh, let's try to work on it. For example, Tove Lo's last part where it's a lot of cutting and some sounds. I did it all for the first cut, and then the audio company made got this reference and made it better.
Cool. On the Netflix show, how closely are you working with the director of that episode and with the creator of the entire series?
Actually, the director that the episode that I'm working, it's of the director that is running the whole season. Yeah, we call like the general director, but he also had two other directors in the other episodes,
I see.
because it's a longer time we spend there, and we're really involved with this. Like sometimes advertisement can be really like in a week you're just done with it, and this you have to work with the director, and and it's to put a story together. It's harder than I thought. Like said, oh, this is gonna be just a script, and then okay, and then this director said something that I think is really interesting. That every movie has three scripts: the one that is written, the one that is directed, because sometimes what they written it's not actually what he could direct and shoot, and the one that is edited, because and especially this episode that we did, we have to change like the order of the scenes, and yeah, it was pretty nice experience, but really it's took a lot of work as well.
I see. Okay. How long working just on that episode?
It was 12 weeks, so it's
Wow.
almost 3 months.
Okay. Now, if it's not too personal, how does the pay for that 12 weeks compare to the pay for a 3 day commercial or a three-day music video?
Yeah, commercials are, you could say, like more profitable because, like the advertising market has usually more money. But I don't think in Brazil right now the streaming networks, they're really getting here, and they're it's good because our government now, we have a terrible president that he doesn't care for culture. He think it's, people are just wasting time, and so that helped our market, especially people who used to do like feature films and things like that. And I think they're paying pretty fair. Like I don't think there's this big huge difference. Of course, it's a Netflix series. It's they have a huge budget, and it's a big production company, but I think it's pretty fair nowadays. I don't, but of course, advertisement will pay you better.
I see, I see. Is it Iconoclast, where that production coordinator that you mentioned?
Actually, in Brazil, the production company I mentioned was Prodigo.
Okay.
But when overseas company comes to Brazil, they have kind to join with a local
Ah, cool.
production company, and they have to, I don't know, like release 300 films together, and then once this overseas company did it, they can just split apart, and it becomes a production company in Brazil, which happened that they never broke up this relationship. So Iconoclast, it's mainly the advertisement, and Prodigo, it's the one that now does feature films and series. They're
Cool.
they're kind of brother and sister companies.
Cool. Okay. And then this next Netflix project you're working on, is that more of the Invisible City, or is it a different?
No, it's gonna be for Paramount Plus, that they call, and it's gonna be with a different director, and but the same production company, Prodigal,
Cool.
that I did it.
Cool.
So I'm really really looking forward to it because I loved it, and it feels sometimes like you doing something more concrete. Like I love doing advertisement. I think it's a different approach, but I think after you can really explore your editing when you're doing this long project, because you get really involved with it.
So I think with music videos, the director is often listed right there. Like they do some cool animated title. They're like marketed as part of the music video, and they really put their stamp on it. Whereas with a TV show, the director is often much less visible. Does that impact how hands-on they are in post-production? So will a music video who's maybe trying to make a brand for herself or for himself be giving you a lot more specific notes about we want this look, we want to have this type of shot, or let's do these cuts. Like you said, Alaska, they edit themselves, which is really cool. With the TV directors, are they a little bit more hands off, or is that not the case?
I believe it's pretty much the same, especially video clips. They usually like put their names on it because usually the budget it's tighter. Like it's never something like an advertisement. I think it's always like the director is always trying to do an extra thing because they didn't fit the budget, but that's where they can like be themselves, because of course the artist's gonna prove sometimes, there's the record label, they're gonna, but it's different than advertisement, because advertisement usually here in Brazil we have the agency and then the client. So, and then the agency, sometimes they have these conflicts of the, creative conflicts that, so the directors wanted something that way and the agency the other. And then when they showed it to the client, he wants another way. So sometimes I think they're more hands-on when they're doing the, especially video clips, because it's something that they can show, like almost without interference what their vision is like.
When you were doing that internship, when you were learning After Effects, starting to take on these small editing projects, what did you do that catapulted this career? And so what advice do you have for people in a similar position? They're maybe starting an internship or just looking for any foot in the door.
I think what it wasn't something that happened overnight. It's something that you have to keep on working your network. Like being available. I've done like many things. I also directed when I was starting because I had a camera and I had a friend who had a client and he said, "Oh, you want to do this for almost free?" And said, "Of course." And then I got to learn a lot. It's good to be in other positions. So sometimes before I was the director and photographer, and sometimes before that, when I got some footage, I said, "Oh my God, this photographer, like what was he thinking?" And then when you saw your own footage, you said, "Oh, and now I understand." Like it's so hard to do it.
Yeah.
Like so you get more, you understand better the process. So and then I was just like throwing myself to any kind of opportunity. And of course, sometimes I think there's a bit of luck, sometimes because I had this free time to do this first work with the Alaskas. If I was doing an advertisement, probably the chance was, like they would find another one and probably maybe we would never work together. So you have to try, especially when you're beginning, to embrace, all the projects and don't be like, oh, this is I don't know, like a wedding video. I won't do this because I just want to do big films. So this won't work because when you start doing this, you start becoming good. You just become good by practicing. You cannot just like read books about editing and watch like master classes and say, oh, now I know. You really have to be there, and then you start finding your own way, and eventually people will like it. And
And so you've been freelance your entire career.
yeah,
As I understand, has that ever been scary? Have there ever been periods where it's like, oh man, I don't know where my next project is?
totally scary until today. No, no, of course, it is something that it's really good at sometimes because of course you have this freedom, and I'm, as I told you, I'm a musician. So when there wasn't any kind of job, I was trying to do something to work learn an instrument, or there's never a waste of time. You can always improve yourself when you have these times. But I think as a freelance, and I think for all freelancers, there's always this uncertainty of, oh my God, this is this gonna happen again? But usually, like when you work really hard, like nothing beats it. Like eventually somebody will get to you. But it's for example, the series for me gave a lot of more, a few more calm because I got 3 months
Yeah.
paid, like, and I have this job, and then you're gonna, sometimes you're worried as well as a freelance, is the next job gonna be with a nice director because some, or a nice production company, because usually here in Brazil advertisement can be really crazy and really stressful. I don't know how it is in the States, but
Same in
sometimes
the
people,
States.
yeah, people call me 11 at night, like, oh my God, the thing was, and everything was right, and then you, really stressful.
Yeah.
So yeah, freelance life can be hard, but I think it's worth if you can have peace when you say like, oh, it's gonna probably in the next week, and then eventually a month, 2 months, nobody called you. You have to do some, like put your portfolio, call friends, and things will happen probably.
Yeah. How feasible is it today for a remote editor, maybe out, far away from a city like Sao Paulo, where there's this booming advertising industry, to create a successful career editing commercials or even editing shows or movies?
Yeah, I think after the pandemic, it changed a lot. I don't know if I would have done those jobs, like for example the one with Recorder, which is a German production company, without the pandemic, because I think before that people weren't that comfortable by having an editor editing remotely and say, oh my God, you see. And nowadays, I think it's for me, it's good because I have my own space. Like it's kind of, you feel home there. Your computer's there with your shortcuts. Sometimes when you get to a production company, the computer is a bit old, and there's always some kind of problem. But I think nowadays, it's more feasible for you to work remotely. But I think it's also important, and it counts for production companies and directors to have this kind of proximity, with people that you're working with. But it's much more than I think it was a couple of years ago.
Let me ask you this. Let's say you had all of your skills and knowledge that you have now, but you didn't know any directors, any production companies, and you had no portfolio yet. You're not in Sao Paulo or Rio or a big city. You're just in some remote place, but you have an internet connection. What would you do to start your career?
Yeah, I think portfolio nowadays, it's especially remotely, it's really important because that's how you're gonna impact people. So I probably would start trying to find people that there's always a band trying to make a video clip, and you can try to do it like with
Yeah.
almost no money, and people say, oh, okay, people will tend to believe you like when they see something that you've done. You cannot say, oh, I've done university, many courses, and I'm really good. But what? So I would think that trying to make like works so you can show people, it would be the first thing you have to do, because without it, people they and it's a lot of for example, I did a university, but nobody ever asked me for my degree. Like, oh, you did. Oh, let me see if you're a really real editor. And most of the editors now, they don't even do in a university.
Yeah.
So I think people want to see your work. So, and of course, and then for you have tried to be, I don't know, polite, and try to really work together with that person. Like, don't try to, oh, this is my editing, this is my way to edit. Like, there's always opportunity for you to learn when you meet someone new, and then you see their workflow, and try to work with it, because that's how. And then directors really like it, because you're not there as something, oh no, I don't want to do it, you want to, no, but I think it's wrong. No, you said, let's try, we should try this, then that, and then you of course have to say, oh, I think that should be a good idea, and then that's how things happen. You cannot expect that you're going to be a really great editor, so just the director going to give you the footage and it's going to be good. There's always going to be this creative process, and it's really collective. We have to work together.
If there's one thing you know now that you could have known at the very beginning of your career, 2008, what would that be?
You mean something that I should have known when I was 2008, that let me see,
Yeah, if you could go back and tell that version of you something, what would you tell them?
that version of me. Yeah, try not to worry much about, like as we were talking about freelance. I suffered a lot, and sometimes I almost, like, I had this. I remember I was starting, and it came an opportunity to work in a TV channel in Brazil, and it was like they were gonna pay my wages, like, like every by the end of the month. It was pretty regular, but something, by that time, it felt to me that I said it's not what I want to do, because it was pretty much like television. It wasn't anything like fiction or something. It was kind of a almost reality show. So it's something that I wasn't that interested. And I remember telling my mom, said, "Oh, they come with this, but I don't think I'm gonna get it because that's not what I want." And she got kind of mad. He said, "You know, there's a job for you. You know, you're." And then I said, "No, I think I'll keep trying to do this." So, and then I suffered, of course, a lot because of the you're expecting someone to call you, and am I good enough? You know, you're always asking yourself if and I think I would just say tell myself in 2008, just come down and do what you believe. Like sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you're broke and you need to get that job, and eventually you're going to learn a lot from. I don't think I would waste my time if I got that opportunity. But I think you have to. You don't need to be so freaked out about, oh my God, am I good enough? Like try to believe yourself until the end, and that's I think that's what I would say.
I love that. Okay, so what's ahead for you? You said you're very interested in doing more TV, feature films. Will you consider starting your own studio at some point? Is that appealing? Where might you go from here?
I don't know how's the market's gonna work with it in Brazil. I think probably we're gonna have more editing houses. We're gonna separate, so there's the production company, there's the editing house. But nowadays, I'm pretty happy with my editing bay in my house, working remotely. I don't have any intention to open a studio, but eventually get together with another editors and make something would be nice. I'm part nowadays of an association called AMC. It's an association of editors in Brazil, especially in São Paulo. We have the opportunity to talk with other work fellows, about the crazy things we've been through editing, the crazy things people ask, and we can exchange experiences. And I think it's really important. I think every editor, especially when you're beginning, try to talk with other editors, and to when you have doubts, and sometimes there's something really specific and you Google it, but Google won't find it, and you just ask for an editor and he'll just give you right away what you need. So, but yeah, I think my plan nowadays is just keep on going. I'm pretty much going with the flow. I try to update my portfolio. And of course be aware of there's an opportunity and try to be there. But I think it's pretty okay now. I'll keep on going with my editing bay and see what
Will,
happens.
will you direct more?
When I started doing the university, my dream was to be a director. And then eventually when I got to editing, I said, oh, I think I like it, and it works. And I was in the beginning kind of, I'm gonna edit, and then I'm gonna become a director. But nowadays, I think I'm becoming more and more of an editor. I think I really like this, and sometimes can be a bit lonely. I'm a kind of person that I prefer to, go around and see people, and not stay in a room for 12 hours in front of a computer. But nowadays, I think I love editing so much that it's kind of a distant dream, but eventually it might happen. As I told you, it's like, let's say next year, nobody will call me for a job for 2 3 months, and I said I think could do a content for YouTube, with my camera, and then I might become a director. Like the things are. But nowadays, I'm totally 100% editor.
You said you're primarily in Premiere. You learned Media Composer. What are your thoughts on DaVinci, and what other software is part of your workflow?
Yeah, I actually started with Final Cut 7. And then, of course, when they come with the Final Cut 10, it really made a lot of changes. And I think by that time, Premiere was pretty much like Final Cut 7. They got every feature that. So I worked with that. And Media Composer, this series that I was working, had a really close friend of mine that I actually, when I was an intern, he was the editor of this production company. And he's an amazing guy that I went there to his house and watched him working with Media Composer. So I got to learn it, and of course I had to check on the internet many stuff. But the other ones, I say Da Vinci, I I think I used DaVinci when I was directing and I do this really low budget films. It was good for you to do some color correction and even like conforming some proxies, something like this. But it's been a really, really long time that I don't use. And After Effects does help me a lot until today, especially with these CG videos. It's amazing. Like I would recommend maybe for an editor starting right now, I would say instead of learning DaVinci and Premiere, I would say try to do I don't know DaVinci and After Effects or Premiere and After. Try to get or even Photoshop or Blender. Like this. I don't know much, but some people that might want to do some 3D. I think there's always like for example music for me it does help me a lot when you have other things apart from editing it will always help you when you uh, I try to not just watching editing films. I like to go to museums, to concerts, and I think that's and going to bar with friends, drinking, and someone would might show me a song that is going to be in the next, the as a reference for the movie I'm editing. So I recommend for people to not just only be in editing. Like editing is also like all your references put together, so if
Yeah,
like I know music and so you have more options to make your movie better.
I love that. That's great. Okay, well, for people that want to follow you online or see more of your work or engage with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, there's my portfolio. If you put in Google Marcelo Vogelaar portfolio, it's going to be there because the name of the portfolio is from Adobe Creative Cloud, so I think it's Marcelo Vogelaar at portfolio.com. I don't know. But if you go to Google, you'll find it. And I have my Instagram, but I don't post. I just post my boring life. It's not nothing much about it. I don't put my works there. So I recommend you to go to portfolio. And if somebody wants to reach me, there's my email there. And it will be a pleasure to exchange experiences with editors around the world.
Well, that's great. This was a lot of fun.
It was an honor to your invitation. I think it's really nice for editing. Sometimes it's something that not many people know what we do now. Sometimes they just say, "Oh, you just get the footage and put together." It sounds amazing because you just get you have the script and you have the images, so just put together and it's there. But for us to talk more about it and for people who's interested, and I think the new generation right now, it's had so much more contact, with like I had a friend saying, "Man, you're gonna lose your job because there's AI editors now that you just have a software." And I said, "Man, are you gonna listen to robot music from now on, or so you? Of course, they're gonna do amazing things, but I think nothing replaced the human factor. Like we have feelings and there's a lot to do still."
It's true, and as we move into a more and more video-centric world, where more and more of the time in our day is spent consuming video, I think the opportunities are just multiplying every year. So I think it's a very bright future for people that love
It
editing.
is, it is, and there's I'm going to still learning from the to the end of my life, because every new project there's something new, and now there's so many new tools as well. What I was checking the other day, I think it's called Runaway. It's a website where you can just like click on the image and they would just like erase all the background and like what you would take like 3 hours with a mask doing like frame by frame get this mask it does in 3 seconds and then you just export and eventually like for this series like there was a owl scene that was she was a owl flying towards this character and I got in the internet, in the YouTube, an owl video, and then I remove the background, and then I put in so it becomes a perfect reference. Of course, the CG team will work on it, but so we have to be aware as well of these new tools because it makes much easier for us.
It's true, and I love that you mentioned that. On the show, Ian, who has a popular YouTube channel called Learn How to Edit Stuff, he's one of the early employees at Runway. So he's
Really?
Yeah, so he was telling me all about it. So I love that you've already been using it.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I love it. I love it. If you guys have any other tips for me, I'll love to check it.
Well, thank you, Marcelo. Great to meet you. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you so much. This project is amazing. I wish all the success for you. And anytime you want, I'll be around.
Sounds great. Talk to you soon.
Nice to meet you.